Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence with Just Ask. Today we have with us the Interpreter Improvement Guild. Hurry back and join us. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today we have with us the Interpreters Improvement Guild. Our guest is Stevie Westfall, Nancy Scullin, and Mark King. Hi, Stevie. Hi, Mark. And hi, Nancy. How are you?
Real good. Hi, Marsha.
Fine. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I need for one of you to start off and let us know exactly what is Interpreter Improvement Guild.
And who wants to start?
Be our guest.
Me. We're a group of interpreters who ourselves saw a need for some sort of a group that could come together, encourage one another, improve our skills. Interpreting is something that is not a static profession. It's something that needs to be worked on, developed constantly. And we really weren't finding it out in the community. And so we began very small, just the three of us.
Okay.
Trying to help each other and encourage each other. And we wanted to do that for every interpreter that we knew. And so we set it up that way.
Now, how long has is it an organization, company, or what is it considered?
It's an organization.
Okay.
We're just an association, a non-member association actually. And it's just an open forum where interpreters, sign language interpreters, come together and just support one another and have fellowship and work on our skills.
Okay, so can I ask each and every one of you, how long have you been an interpreter?
Forever.
Okay.
Really, professionally, I've been working in the field about 20 years.
Okay, okay. And so now, do you find it gratifying to be an interpreter?
I can't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely can't imagine doing anything else. Working with people in the community, the deaf in the community, the hearing people that we work with in the community who are interested in improving the situation of communication has been wonderful. It's an ongoing process, and it's something that new technology, new things are opening up all the time, and it makes it very exciting.
Okay, now Nancy, how long have you been an interpreter?
I've been interpreting for probably 10 years professionally, and I still am like a baby in the field. I'm very young in the field as far as that goes. But we consider ourselves not only interpreters for the deaf, but we also communicate for the hearing, because we compare it with maybe you have a Spanish-speaking person and an English-speaking person. They can't talk to each other, but who would you say has the barrier? They simply speak different languages, and that's the way we feel about sign language. It is just a language barrier that both people need help to bridge, and so that's where we come in. Okay. We try to make that bridge a smooth bridge transition.
That sounds good. Mark, how long have you been an interpreter?
I've been interpreting for about 25 years now.
Okay, okay. Now, the fact that you all are interpreters, do you go to the school system, or how does your clients come in contact with you?
There are several ways that it can be done. There are agencies, several agencies in the community that are referral agencies. They provide lists of interpreters, and so anyone that needs an interpreter, whether it be a business, whether it be an individual, can contact agencies and make arrangements for interpreters. There are what we call freelance interpreters, who are simply individual interpreters who contract out under the same situation. Schools need it, hospitals, lawyers. There are very few companies that employ staff interpreters. So as a general rule, they're coming from the community of interpreters.
So do you basically have a full day, so it's just like a 9-to-5 job when you interpret?
No, not by any means. A lot of our time is taken in travel time because you have to go from the point of business to the next point. So we're in our cars often. We consider ourselves actually professional drivers who simply stop once in a while and interpret. But we can have a very long day and with our business, and part of that's interpreting and the other part travel time.
Okay.
But you can be busy as much as you want. There is a great demand for interpreters, and there are few qualified interpreters in the field at this moment.
Now, is that like a 7-day job, though, being an interpreter?
It can be. There seems to be a need almost every day of the week for an interpreter, and so some interpreters work full-time in the school systems, and then they'll do extra work in the evenings and on weekends to help fill the need. Other interpreters will just work 7 days a week, or your schedule is it's truly up to you to set, because you just receive requests and you fill as many as you can, and if you need time off for personal reasons, or of course a day or two off, which everyone needs some rest, then you take that. But certainly interpreters could be working 7 days a week.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, do your hands actually or ever get tired? You ever get finger cramps or anything? I'm sure our audience is like, well, if they're interpreters, how come their hands are not moving? So do your hands ever get just outright tired?
You indicated two different things that are kind of interesting there. One about the actual physical limitations to interpreting. This is the one language that becomes physical in the sense of the use of the hands and the shoulders, and the whole body is used as part of body language that's incorporated into it. So yes, there is a lot of carpal tunnel syndrome. We lose a lot of interpreters from the profession who have to leave because of actual physical disabilities that they have acquired because of interpreting. So we're trying to make adjustments to that. The Interpreter Improvement Guild is not only a support group for interpreters, but we're trying to be a resource to look up and get all of the information that we can that pertains to interpreting the profession. What's going on out there that might be essential for all interpreters to know, and that's one of the things. The second thing you talked about, which you may not have even realized, was wondering why we're not interpreting while we're speaking. And we find that because actually they're two totally different languages, and this is something that many people don't realize, that ASL, American Sign Language, is a full language with its own grammar, its own syntax. And English, of course, has very separate, distinct, and different rules. And so to really try to combine the two at the same time doesn't do justice to either. So it's one of those situations when we're really concentrating on doing English. That's what we use as our method of communication, and do sign language separately.
Another part of that would be the brain fatigue. To try and process language for any extended period of time, it's very difficult on the mind. So when we are working for an extended period of time, sometimes it's even an hour if it's continuous talking, then we have to have a team of interpreters where two of us go in and we break down the time. It would be like 15 minutes for one interpreter and then the next interpreter for 15 minutes, so that your mind has a chance to renew itself so that you can properly give the information accurately.
So you refresh yourselves when you rotate.
Yes, exactly. It gives the interpreter an opportunity to just rest, because they have found that mental fatigue causes misinterpretation. And when you try to put in a sign language interpreter in a situation where they're interpreting nonstop for any real length of time, they find that the quality of interpreting goes down, because it's just a constant processing.
Now, is there a special interpreter for, say, physicians? Do anyone go into the hospitals? You ever go into the hospital sessions and someone needs to have surgery or something or other? Do they have interpreters who specialize, or can it be just a general interpreter to specialize physicians' information?
Well, this is one of the things that we're addressing, as a matter of fact, in the Interpreter Improvement Guild. This is one of the areas that we want to really talk about, the specialization. To answer your question, yes, there are interpreters that do go into those settings. Are there interpreters that specialize exclusively? Not all of us are specialists. In the community, very, very few are specialists in one given area. Probably the most area of specialty right now would be education. In the mainstream school systems, you have educational interpreters. But right now, it is generalized, and there is a need for more specialization.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to address.
So it can't be taught or broken down to be a special field. If a person wants to learn just one particular, like the church may want a person. A lot of people take the course and say, well, I want to learn to interpret for the church.
Yes.
Okay, but they may not go into extensive version of ASL.
Right.
Okay, American Sign Language. So that they think that, well, I'm going to do this for the church, but in actuality, they're learning more than just information for the church.
Of course. If they want to be a fluent interpreter, even if it's in a church setting or whatever setting, you would really need to learn the language fluently. One should always be fluent in a language before they begin to interpret it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we find situations, as again another reason for the Interpreter Improvement Guild, we find sign language students who maybe have taken 1 or 2 semesters of sign language at a community college. As they learn, they just start feeling more confident about themselves, and then they want to get out into the community and to begin to interpret, and that's very, very dangerous because American Sign Language is very complicated.
Right.
It's not English, it's very, very complicated, and someone without enough experience and the proper training can misinterpret very easily.
Okay.
And so if they're doing something in a medical setting or a legal setting, or even if someone goes in to apply for a job, and if the interpreter misinterprets and just gives the wrong information, that might cost that individual the job. It may cost them their life. They may, I mean, there are a number of things in the medical setting or in a legal case, they might end up losing a case because...
Right. I mean, that's what I was mainly concerned about, is that interpreters, at one point, the symbols or the symbols themselves can mean 2 different things. Am I correct?
Sure.
It is a language.
Right. So in other words, the person is trying to convey one thing, but the symbol could mean
mean another thing, exactly.
Okay.
There are idioms in sign language just as there are in English. So when you say,
I remembered that.
that's a horse of a different color, you're not speaking about a horse at all.
Okay.
And yet if you were to interpret it that way, it would be meaningless to a deaf person who does not know the English language and doesn't know that idiom. They would not understand what you're talking about. Right. Where did the horse come from?
Now, I know that some people think because when you're hearing impaired, and which is partial, that an interpreter may not be necessary. But in my case, because I'm hearing impaired, I find an interpreter necessary, especially during conferences or workshops at my job and everything, so that I can clearly understand what the trainer is telling me. Because if someone's walking up and down the floors or something, or computers or things are going along, the same time the trainer is speaking, it blocks out the conversation. So at one point, there is a need for interpreters to be with hearing impaired as well as profoundly deaf persons?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, another area which we haven't addressed yet is oral interpreting.
Right.
Steve, you might want to speak a bit on that.
Oral interpreting is one area that sometimes gets neglected because, again, as you mentioned, many times people feel that if the person can speak for themselves or has some residual hearing, well, they obviously don't need an interpreter, and that's not true, because depending on how much hearing they have or don't have, they may need all of the information clarified for them. So there are oral interpreters who concentrate on the lip reading skills of the individual and repeat information using some methods that perhaps people aren't aware of. Because so many words sound alike,
right.
Bat, mat, pat, the oral interpreter will learn how to distinguish things for the deaf individual. So for instance, instead of saying a bat, you would say a baseball bat. That additional information. Instead of saying a mat, you would say a welcome mat. As long as it was in context appropriately, those additional methods would help the individual to get the right phrasing.
All right. That makes sense. Well, Stevie, Nancy, and Mark, we're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Interpreters Improvement Guild. Be right back.
Do you think you have the power to change the world?
I can change the world one child at a time.
I know I can make a difference in those children's lives.
I teach.
I teach.
Yes, they're teachers, but to the kids they reach, they're heroes.
I teach.
Do you have the power to wake up young minds, to be someone's hero? Teach, to make an impact on our future. Call 1-800-45-TEACH. Be a teacher, be a hero.
Wonderful. Hi, and welcome back to the second half of the show. For those of you who are just not joining us, we have the Interpreters Improvement Guild. Now, guys, we left off with some very important information here, and I want to go back to the fact that I know you have a monthly meeting, okay? Yes. Now, can you tell me, in your monthly meeting, what exactly do you do? And how do everyone come together?
Well, it's open to everyone. We are open to students of sign language. We're open to interpreters that are working every day or that work rarely and need to improve their skills or maintain their skills. We're open to already certified interpreters. So we have a broad range of skill levels that come to our meetings. At our meetings, we invite a member of the deaf community to come in, and whatever subject of their choice, they just do a presentation in sign language, and that's a time for us to improve our visual skills, to be able to, as we call it, read the deaf person, because part of the language is our production. Whatever we hear, we inform them, but then the other half is whatever they want to say, they sign, and we have to voice that for them. And so that is a very difficult part of the language, and so we try to offer this for people to hone their skills and improve them, to make them ready for some testing to evaluate their skill level.
Okay. Now, where's your meetings held? Is it in a particular place?
Well, when we were a very small group of 3, we were able to meet at one of the agencies. Deaf Community Advocacy Network had a small room that they let us use. As we outgrew that room, one of the mainstream programs in Oakland County, Bloomfield Hills School District, had a room that we used. We outgrew that one,
okay.
Which was wonderful to see the growth and the amount of interpreters who were really interested. And now we're housed at the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped in Oakland County.
Okay.
And they actually have given us storage room, so we're not throwing things in the trunk of the car anymore. We're actually in one location, and we have a conference room. So we're able to bring in speakers, as Nancy was mentioning, from the deaf community, and then we're able to videotape them. Okay. And these then can be copied and used by those that are in attendance to take home and use and review their skills.
Okay. So if you meet at the, is it the library, Oakland County Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. So if it's a monthly meeting, is there a standard date that you meet, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We always meet the second Friday of every month. And our meetings run from 4 in the afternoon until 8 in the evening. Generally, we run over a lot, but those are the printed times that we meet. Usually when you get interpreters together, because it's very rare, generally interpreting is a very lonely profession. You're on your own most of the time, so when you do get a chance to meet with other interpreters, it's pretty hard to stop talking about everything under the sun.
Do you talk or do you sign?
We talk, actually. We don't do much signing at our meetings, except for when we have a deaf visitor. We have a deaf visitor every month who does do a presentation, but usually when we're standing around, we're generally talking for the same reason as we're not signing now, because one can sign in an English word order, but it isn't really very nice to the language. It's because you're just taking and turning everything around. So we generally just talk. Okay,
let me ask you this, and this is my interpretation. In the deaf community, the word the, and, but, if, a. Does it exist?
The articles?
Okay.
They exist. What confuses people is because of the fact that, again, English and ASL are totally different languages. And so when people don't see them in the same word order as they would expect to see them in English, they assume that they're not there. Mm-hmm. But if you talk to native users of the language, they will tell you they are incorporated in the language, but it's in a different format than what you would see in English. Okay. So you are talking about a visual gestural language as opposed to a spoken language. And so the syntax is quite different, probably based more on French. The format than it would be on English, and follows that word order a little bit more.
I know you have a monthly newsletter. Is this a newsletter that comes out monthly?
Yes, it does.
And in your newsletter, what are you telling the community?
We generally give information on who our speaker will be for we generally send that out about a week ahead of time. We try to send out too early so people don't forget, but just enough time that they can mark their calendar and be sure to come. And we tell them who the speaker for the next meeting will be, as well as, if we can, the next 2 meetings. And then we have just notes about different things that are going on in the interpreting community, and an informational section where we can tell about upcoming events as far as workshops, classes, performances, those kinds of things that are being
Okay, so
presented.
you do have some workshops coming up and performances coming up in the next couple of months or so?
We do. We have just actually the monthly meetings are what we have planned to date.
Okay.
And the newsletter and everything before, we are non-members, so it's just a donation. As we get together, we just have a box set up and just say, you know, if you'd like to donate, please do so. And that has worked well. But for the newsletter and the postage and so forth, we have been trying to find support for that means. And recently we were able to get some money from Wabanzi, which is...
Okay, Wabanzi.
Wabanzi.
Community College, it's located not too far from Chicago. They actually have funding that they get to provide training for interpreters in the field, both those who are already working and those who are in school systems and so forth. And they recognize the fact that there is such a need for continuing training of interpreters. There are programs that set up to have the interpreters actually go through training programs in colleges, but many of the interpreters, once they get beyond that point and need to continue on, there isn't enough out there in the community. So Wabanzi is offering to help us to fund programs like the Interpreter Improvement Guild and go on the road to other locations and provide it for other areas too.
So I noticed in your notes that you have credits. You give credits to, what is it, RID, R-I-D, or... Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Interpreters there are basically 3 kinds of certifications for sign language interpreters. We have the state level, which is called quality assurance. It's not a certification, but it's an assurance. And then there are 3 levels that one can be certified at with the QA. And then there are 2 national certification tests. There's the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, and people holding that certification need to keep current. And so they show this by earning what are called CEUs, which are credits, that educational units. And any certified interpreter who attends an IIG meeting can earn those credits. So by merely just attending our meeting for a good length of time, because of the workshops and the variety of speakers we have and the things that we do, makes it possible for them to earn those credits and show that they're keeping current. The other certification is offered by the National Association of the Deaf.
Okay.
And they also have a 3-level certification system, and so we have 2 national and 1 state test that is offered. Okay,
well, I mean, to be certified is pretty good there, because you want to make sure that a person knows the work.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes it makes it better if a person is certified. I mean, you got certified swimmers, certified physical therapists, certified CPRs. You can have certified interpreters. So that makes it much easier, and I'm sure comfortable to the client.
And it's very nice because in the Interpreter Improvement Guild, we've been privileged to have people from all 3 groups of interpreters, as well as students and as well as those learning. So we're able to work together and help each other.
Okay. Now, do persons who are not hearing impaired and profoundly deaf come to the meetings, such as like family members who may have family members that are hearing impaired or profoundly deaf?
I don't know. That would be an outreach. I hadn't considered that, but that would be an outreach for us. The exciting thing is that it was established for interpreters as it began. Now we have coming to the meeting, we have the deaf community contacting us and saying, you know, I'm not presenting this month, but do you mind if I just come and watch? So we're getting the support from the deaf community, which is exciting to us as interpreters. It means that what we're doing, keep going. Don't give up.
Right.
But that is a good point, Marcia. This is open to them if they would like to come and observe the language.
Well, you need to give out your phone number, and I know you have one.
Right now we're using the phone number at the library for the blind and physically handicapped. They've been very, very generous to us, very helpful, and they're taking phone calls for us. Anyone that's interested can call, and they will get in touch with us, and we're in there a lot.
Okay, well,
and anyone that's interested in getting a newsletter. I'm more than happy to send them out.
Absolutely.
So they can call the library and actually get a newsletter sent to them?
They can call, or they can just write to the post office box that we have for the Interpreter Improvement Guild, and just request a newsletter, or give us a call, either one, and we'll put their name on the list, and they'll start getting one right away.
Okay, we'll definitely show the address along with the phone number so that they can cover that information.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're actually a growing company or organization. It started off small, and now it's rapidly growing. And now, are your interpreters getting younger and younger? Like they're just
They seem to be. Does that mean we're getting older?
Well,
To us,
right.
they are, yes.
Okay. Well, their hands are younger. Okay.
One of the problems that we find is Michigan has a very large deaf population.
It really does.
However, the services that are offered are very low. The amount of services that are offered, and one of the reasons for that is the fact that there isn't as many interpreters as there needs to be. Many people are confused about the fact that interpreters don't get any benefits as a general rule unless they're working for a school system that provides it as a general rule. This is a freelance type of program. So many younger people aren't really drawn into the profession.
Okay.
And so we're trying to set up a support group with the Interpreter Improvement Guild so they don't have additional costs in trying to continue their education and trying to continue to learn and improve. The deaf community is coming in and supporting interpreters because they need them so much.
It seemed like with the new laws, the ADA laws, that this would be, one of the requirements to have the interpreters certified as well as recognized for their services, licensed, insured, and ready and available at all costs and times, no matter what, And it shouldn't just be locked into the school system. It should be work areas, school system, and home physicians, really across the board. Because I must tell the audience that I had the pleasure of having you two ladies interpret for me during the training session with my employers, and I enjoyed you very much. And you wouldn't believe what they did. But to know that there's people out there, because even in the job that I have, if you hadn't came along and I didn't learn the required information, I would have suffered. The agency would have suffered. We'd had to start all over again. Well, they were pleased to know that once I had gotten the services from you all, that the weight is not on them any longer. So in other words, if I didn't learn it, it's because I didn't try. But the bottom line is to have the service ready and available. And I appreciate you ladies coming very much.
Oh,
thank you.
It was our pleasure.
So we really should try to advocate and have, a common ground to be built upon so that this type of service will be available at all costs. The children are getting younger. Okay, deaf children are getting younger and younger.
They're recognizing their deafness, and this has been a wonderful thing. By being able to identify their deafness at an early age, they're able to work on communication. And once there is communication, then language can develop from that. But without the communication first, then there's a real impairment to having any type of language built. We've talked about oral interpreting, we've talked about sign language interpreting. There are many in the deaf-blind community who also need tactile interpreting done for them. So there's a wide variety of needs, and we want to address them all. We want to be a resource to make everything available to everyone in the community.
Okay.
And I think that one of the things is the misconception on the hearing community's part. They think that they don't understand what it means to have a certified interpreter, and therefore someone who would come up to them and say, well, I've had some sign language classes, I can interpret. It shows a lack of understanding on both the person that's offering their service on their part as well as the hearing community's part. It's important that the hearing community understand that when you're providing service, you have to have someone qualified to interpret. And so that's what we're out there for, too, is educating the hearing community.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, Stevie, Nancy, and Mark, I want to thank you so much for coming out to see us. And we do want you to come back, and any information that you have for us, please keep us informed so we can actually let the community know that this service is out here readily and available. We'd like to come out and see you sometime also.
That would be wonderful. We would enjoy having you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know who I am. I'm Marsha Florence for Just Ask. If you'd like to get in contact with these ladies and gentlemen, please look at our screen and get the phone number as well as the address for the P.O. Box. You may write to them, or you can call us and we can forward the information to you. As I always say, don't be afraid to ask. If you know someone with a disability, just ask. I'm your host, Marsha Florence. Thank you.
Oh, girl.